Melinda James on ABC Illawarra.
Every time we talk about scams on this program, we are inundated with calls from you about how you or someone you know and love has been scammed. And in many instances, it's being scammed in a way where you're not to blame. It's quite extraordinary, the sophistication of these things. I'll never forget the one where someone told us about how the email of their solicitors, their conveyancers, had been hacked and the account number had been changed. Really remarkable lengths people are going to now to scam you. And a lot of criticism in the past about whether our government was doing enough or even just as much as other governments were doing to protect us and hold various institutions more responsible for protecting us. For example, banks, tech companies, digital platforms, telcos. Well, the government's just released its new laws to place new obligations on banks and other industries to try to prevent scams. To help us make sense of them, to talk about whether they go far enough, I am joined by Dr. Katina Michael from the University of Wollongong's Faculty of Business and Law. Katina, good morning.
Good morning, Melinda.
Oh, gee, we've talked a lot about whether the Australian government's done enough and whether it needs to do more. From your brief overview of them looking at placing these new obligations on banks, on telcos, on tech giants, do you think the Australian government's gone far enough?
Well, they're doing something, and this trend towards more scams has to be reduced. Just last year, 601,000 scams, record number, and an increase of 18.5% on the previous year. So it's costing Australians $2.74 billion. So it's time that we did something, and I think we're acting with a solution. And Australia has taken an all-stakeholder approach to this, not just as in the UK, for example, putting the blame and the responsibilisation on banks to respond to victims of scams. So we're doing something.
Yeah, basically banks are up for compensating you entirely, unless you've been grossly negligent when you've been scammed. And we've spoken to Stephen Jones before, and he said the government will not pursue that UK option in terms of making banks entirely responsible. He thinks it basically will lead to people being more lax, less vigilant. That's the government's view anyway. But let's just go through a few of these, Katina. So banks will have to confirm the payee, so the person you're paying money to, so that you get alerted that the money you're giving is actually going to the person you think it is. I mean, this seems really basic, doesn't it?
It does seem basic, but it's really hard to prove identity, and it's really hard to prove where your money is going. And we've seen people set up accounts and then remove those accounts following that period. We've even seen scammers open up rental lease locations, have a false person on the other side, answering the call that seems real to the person that's being scammed, but identity is one of those first stop shops that we have to go to. So it seems simple, but I think the government is right to actually identify this as the beginning issue.
Is this easily implementable by banks, this kind of confirmation of payee technology? Is it at their disposal already?
Yes, it is. This is the good point, that we can actually see who is the card holder, who is that account holder. And there is somebody that obviously has to have had a bona fide authenticated identity there with a name that's been scanned by the bank. So yes, it is. So I think my money is going to Bruce, and the information looks like it's going to John, I know there's an issue right off the bat, and I have to ask more questions as the potential victim.
Another thing that I know people have concerns about, they say, I reported the scam to my bank. Often people don't report it to police. They feel like it just kind of gets lost in the ether, particularly if you've lost money, not through a credit card, but through some other kind of account. But now banks will be obliged to report a scam immediately, rapidly respond and do whatever they can to stop a payment from going through. And they'll be fined if they don't do that now. What do you make of that reform?
That's really important. There's a $10 to $50 million per scam penalty that the ACCC, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, will hand down to banks, telcos or digital platform providers if they do not stop a payment going through. And they can, obviously they can, if it is a scam and they've been informed. We have something now called a third-party the Australian Financial Complaint Authority, the AFCA, that victims can then follow on to a third party and say, this is what happened. Either I went to the bank, or I went to the telco, or I went to the digital platform. I did inform them. They should have informed you. And now I'm taking the case forward through this process that the government has posed through this code. So we are going to a third party to actually handle how the victim will be compensated.
Oh, geez, there's a lot to get through, Katina, and we don't have a lot of time. That AFCA will be very busy, I think. But just briefly, One of the other things that other countries haven't pursued, but we will be pursuing here in Australia, is to hold digital platforms like Facebook, YouTube and Google responsible to a degree. They'll have to verify the identity of advertisers and ensure their content is legal. This seems like a great idea, but close to an impossibility.
You would think so, based on social engineering and the fact that people use the English language in different ways to manipulate others. But I do think this is the root cause, or one of the numerous root causes we've got to look into, that Facebook, YouTube and Google have passed the buck in the past, Meta and Twitter and so forth, saying it's not us, it's the people who are our subscribers and who are doing bot-generated activities at times. I think it is the digital platform providers, I think it is the banks, and I think it is the telcos who have said they will verify who is sending text messages and block numbers making scam calls. Okay, so it's an all-stakeholder approach, and I think the government has a right here. It's everyone's responsible, including the victims, to slow down and to actually look at what is potentially happening to their fake emails that are coming through, the phishing attacks and so forth. So I think it is the right approach. I know it's come under some criticism by lobby groups saying, and consumer advocates saying it's too complicated, but it's a start, and let's see how it'll go once it's instituted.
Yeah, let's see how it'll go. So welcome moves, and let's hope they work to better protect people, because more and more people are being scammed in ways that will catch anybody. You no longer have to be super vulnerable and naive. It can catch anyone. Dr. Michael, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Melinda.
That is Dr. Katina Michael from the University of Wollongong's Faculty of Business and Law. Let's hope it works. Look, the weekend's nearly upon you.